Hello and welcome to DOWNLINES and plasticboats.com. Today I'd like to discuss some of the rigging options I use for chasing striper on Lake Lanier. If you're new to kayak fishing or especially striper fishing from a kayak, this will be informational to you. The problem I found was when I first started kayak fishing that there wasn't just enough information out there. Little parts and stuff on the internet and YouTube, but nothing really informative that puts you on the right track to start with. The first rig we're going to talk about is what we refer to as the downline, and this is simply used to get your bait down to a depth that the fish are. And all this consists of is I use a 17 to a 20 pound test mainline monofilament. And some people use 15 to 12. If you use a lighter line, that's fine. Just make sure that you understand how to allow the fish to take drag so that it doesn't break your leader. Now all this is simply a weighted rig. You can use a swivel, or here I've got a sinker with swivels on both ends. If you use a swivel, just tie a regular egg sinker, you can just tie a swivel on and put the egg sinker up above your swivel. Some people put a glass bead in between it. I use a fluorocarbon leader. Once again, I'm using 20 pound test. A lot of people like to use smaller tests. And I use about anywhere from 5 to 7 foot of leader material. And I use a number 1 Gamakatsu octopus hook. I really like these hooks because it's rare that one of these hooks will gut hook a fish. 9 times out of 10 it will catch him right in the corner of the mouth. So this is basically, like I said, what we refer to as a downline. And I use a reel with a line counter on it. This is a Daiwa AccuDepth, and this allows me to, by looking at my depth finder and seeing the depth that the fish is, to lower exactly my weight down to just above the depth that the fish are. If you don't have a line counter reel, you can always pull a line off and count in 2 foot increments until you get to the depth that you want. Once again, this is called a downline. The next rig that we're going to discuss is what we call a freeline or a flat line. And this is nothing, this is another Daiwa, bigger reel, Daiwa AccuDepth with a lot more line on it. Has a line counter on it. This is the same exact rig with the exception it has no weight on it. So you have your main line, a swivel, and then a fluorocarbon leader 6 to 7 foot long with a hook on it. With the freeline or flat line, the idea is you basically put it out behind your boat. I usually put it out anywhere between 60 feet to 100 feet behind my boat and allow the bait to swim freely at the depth he so chooses. Now here, the thing with this is, if you paddling while you have this bait out, it's going to pull the bait up in the bait column. So the idea here is to move slowly as possible without pulling your bait up from the depth that it wants to swim. I think the stripers prefer this rig simply because the bait are able to freely swim. They're not bound by a 7 foot a leader and a weight. They can cover a lot of territory, and 2, when the stripers get after them, they are able to run, and that just excites the stripers even more. So basically all this is a 6 foot leader, fluorocarbon. I use 20 pound test, a swivel, and a main line, 20 pound test line, and that's a free line. These are the 2 main methods that I use when chasing striper. One thing that I always keep in my boat and keep handy is just a standard bait caster with 12 pound test on it. And this is a cotton cordell redfin. I like white. It's fairly large bait, but you fish this as a jerk bait or crankbait. You fish this though on topwater. You keep your rod tip high and you reel it just fast enough so it doesn't dive under, so that it wobbles and makes a V-wake on top of the water. Here in Lake Lanier we have a lot of spotted bass and stripers early in the morning chasing bait on the surface. I keep this handy within reach, and I can always throw this to busting fish that are busting on the surface. And 9 times out of 10, if I can get it on top of them when they're still busting, they will hit it every single time. You can also use a super spook, a super zero spook, or some people use a pencil popper, things like that. Any kind of topwater bait. The fish are already excited and they're already chasing bait, so pretty much anything that hits the water they'll bite. Get a lot of stripes on this too from spotted bass and striper when they're not busting the surface. It just depends on the temperature and the conditions. And that is today's instructional video on rigging your rods for striper fishing. You can always post up questions on any of my videos and I will answer them in a reply to the same post. Once again, thank you for checking out DOWNLINES and FREELINES.mp4.